So they're like, you're good. You just need to know you're good. And so to have 3, you know, it was John Avnet, Carrie Fisher, and Brett Ratner, who a lot of people hate, but in the context of the show, was actually a really good judge.
Yeah.
You know, to have all 3 of them go, you should have more confidence because you're talented. Was like, okay. And it gave a good pace for the rest of the show. So I think that was one of the main things. It's not really a lesson, but it was kind of.
Oh no, absolutely.
Well, yeah, to take something away.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. So, so then, who's your favorite director then?
Probably a mix between Zemeckis and Gondry, something like that.
And so, what kind of films do you see yourself making?
Similar to those guys.
Right. Okay.
Stuff that kind of has an extraordinary kind of thing to them, or
Back to the Future.
Yeah, I mean, I think Back to the Future, as much as people are, everyone loves Back to the Future, it really is. I will watch those films back to forth, and they're the most well-structured, amazing, like, they just blow my mind. It's got everything. Yeah. And the thing that really blows my mind is, I was talking with Adam about this, because I was watching them on this TiVo one day, and I was like, those films don't necessarily, like, I always feel like there's a certain responsibility in the films that I make to have some sort of moral message or teach us something or comment on something and really, you know, have a heart and, you know.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future doesn't really have a moral at the end of it.
No,
it's just
you can't really find that.
And Adam goes, well, you know what that is? That's because it's made by 2 masters. It's like, you know, Spielberg and Zemeckis got together and and as masters just made a good adventure film. And did it to such a degree of craft that was so well done, and every beat is so well thought, and every shot is so well crafted, and everything has a setup and a payoff and another setup and another payoff, that it's just so perfectly structured that it's great. And it doesn't need to have a moral to make you feel great or anything. It's just like the craft of it is so well done. That's what makes it extraordinary. So I was kind of like, yeah, you're right, but it's still, I don't think I'm at that level at all, so I'm like, okay, I still have to think of a good message.
Right. Did you actually get to meet Spielberg?
No, we never did. The only guy who did was Will. Who He was shooting Indiana Jones at the same time.
Oh, okay, right.
And I think they wanted to kind of keep him to be kind of the prize.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
The prize at the end.
Right. So since then, what sort of stuff have you been up to since that? I guess the show wrapped. Yeah,
it's been pretty good. I've got set up all representation in Canada and in LA.
Okay.
Kind of getting agents and managers and all that together.
Right.
And basically I've been working on some stuff with Disney. They want to start doing some short films, kind of like Pixar.
Okay.
So me and Adam been talking to them. I don't know if it'll go, but hopefully it does. A few other things like that, and just kind of reading and writing scripts and trying to still get I have this idea for a feature that I've been working on for years. It's still not ready, but it's getting close, and we're just kind of in the rewrite stage before we truly shop it around. And we've shopped around treatments and one-pagers, and people are really excited, but the script isn't there yet.
Right.
So do you find that being on the show really changed your life a lot? Or?
Yeah, I think it did. It was basically a giant fast forward.
Right.
It was like, you know, it was like a career 5 to 10 year fast forward, I would say.
Right.
You know, to have not only that, but to be just a short filmmaker, and to have people know your work, is a pretty remarkable thing. To have, you know, we were having, in TV standards, low ratings.
Right.
1 million or 2 million people.
Right.
But in box office ratings, you know, if they were all paying $10 a ticket, you're not doing too bad, right? Exactly. So like, especially for a short filmmaker who's only 23 and just been at this, you know, making movies with his buddies and been working really hard, but that's a huge exposure for not only just people seeing your movies, but also people that are, you know, in the industry seeing your work.
Right.
Recognizing your name and getting meetings.
Oh, that guy, yeah, I like his work. Why don't we have a meeting with him? You know?
Right, exactly. It's like, kind of like this, you know?
Exactly. You get to meet people, and
Yeah.
that's the best part of it.
Right, cool. Now, I need to know about this. Please tell me the story behind this.
All right.
A trademark, or?
That was pretty funny. We had just cut down to the 18, the final 18 that started the
Right.
actual live show. We were kind of sitting around for 3 days where they were doing pickups and interviews and the opening to the show and that kind of stuff. And it was on Universal Studios, and they had this big, one of the big studios kind of looking like a studio because they wanted to have us like, you know, touching cameras and pointing things. And they wanted a different one for each guy.
Right.
And me and Andy, who was he was basically the director for the show, was like, okay, you know, at first we were thinking, oh, it'd be really funny if you like had these 2 flying saucers and then they were on string and you panned up, and I was like, he's like, that's great, and he was like, oh, later he went over and talked to the AD because we're on Universal Studios. He's like, oh, we'll never find them. I'm like, we're on Universal Studios. There's got to be a building full of flying saucers. He's like, okay. The AD's like, no, I can't do that. Like, okay, so then he sets up this really cool shot right behind this giant site that they had and all these big lights. And the idea we had is he had this smoke machine. So what we were going to do is have me standing in front of the camera, smiling, and then walk back as they dolly back and burst out this huge puff of smoke out of the smoke machine behind me, and then play that in reverse. So what it would be is all white, and then as the smoke sucked in, I would come out of it and smile.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was the idea. And so we're starting to get ready to do that and rehearsing marks and where we're going to be and how long the dolly's going to take and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, shooting on a Genesis with a camera this long, and you know, it's coming up and closer. And all the other contestants started coming over by the monitor because the shot looks pretty cool. If you look at it, there's these 3 big, huge lights, and then there's the back of a backlight sight, which is basically reflecting them, and it's kind of dark and cool and looking, and so they're all, oh, it's looking cool, and then, so they're all by the monitor kind of, and I started playing around by the camera that's kind of back and forth, and I started going like, woo, like this, because it was a big wide angle lens, right? And then, so then they're like, oh, that looks cool, and I'm like, like this, and then the director goes, that looked really cool! And I was like, are you sure? He's like, okay, let's do it again, roll camera! And we're like, okay. And then so we did it a bunch of times, back and forth, and did some forward, and that was that. So,
oh, really? So like just scrap the whole shot?
And then, well, we did the smoke thing, but in the end it just took, I think, it took a long time to play the smoke.
Oh, right. And they wanted like a 2 or 3 seconds.
They wanted like a whoop.
Right.
So
that's hilarious.
it was just a total fluke. And then it became a thing.
Right.
Everyone would keep calling me magic hands, and all the other guys were like, "Oh, Zach, you
well, when I was watching, I was like, why don't the other people get to do something cool? Like, what is, you know? So that's funny. That's a great story.
I'm curious, actually, what do you see in regards to? I know you're saying like independent film scene in Vancouver is pretty good. Do you see yourself staying here? Do you see yourself going down to LA? Do you see yourself kind of?
I don't know. I'm hoping to go back and forth.
Right.
I'm hoping to kind of, you know, develop, write and read scripts up here, and then go down there, and I'm hoping to bring the productions up here too.
Okay.
Because as a Canadian director, that's one major point towards being a fully Canadian production, which gives them huge tax credits above the normal tax credits of just being a service production. If you have a Canadian producer, you know, production company, a Canadian director, and a Canadian writer, you can be a fully Canadian production while still having your lead being an American, which is a huge thing because usually the leads are going to want to sell it. So if the studio or the production company down in the U.S. can, you know, have the government pay for 30% of all their wages, just because the 3 of us are Canadian and still have an American lead, then that's a pretty good deal.
Right.
Plus, I want to bring work up here for all the people that have helped me out. I haven't really paid anybody.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I'm hoping to be able to go down there and work on stuff, whatever comes up. Kind of, I don't really know what's going to happen. Kind of just living week to week and phone call to phone call and handshake to handshake.
Who would, if you could pick anybody, who would you want to be your lead?
My lead?
Yeah.
Good question. I don't know. I don't really have. I've never really had actors that I have always drooled over working with. I think I've always liked. I've always thought that actors that I really like are actors that every role is different. So like a lot of actors nowadays kind of play the same thing in every film.
They themselves a lot of time.
Well, it's not necessarily their fault either. It's just that, you know, the studio exec